Hi, and welcome to the Ride Freight Chicago, How to Put on a Successful Fundraiser. This is the last of a three-part series, Hosting Your Fundraiser. So far, you've put in the work to plan your fundraiser, including selecting the amount you want to raise, as well as picking your venue. Next, you completed the checklist of your pre-fundraiser tasks. Here are some guaranteed tips to ensure you have an amazing fundraiser. It's showtime. Let's put on a great fundraiser. So today's the day. Think of your event in three parts: running your event, closing your event, and post-event tasks. Let's start with running your event. Think of your event as 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 1 is probably the most important, and that's to make a good connection with the staff at the event. They are an extension of you, so make sure you introduce yourself and maybe throw in a few free raffle tickets for the staff. It goes a long way. Next, always be selling. Everyone should be fully present who's working your event. That means you may want to save your celebrations till after the event. If you're working the event, we suggest not drinking, especially if you're handling money. We want to make sure everyone has a clear head and engages with your guests. Raffle tickets. Make sure your raffle ticket sellers have enough tickets to make their way through the crowd. Also, make sure they ask every single person. Don't assume people will buy a ticket just because they're at the event. People like to be asked, so make sure you make a personal connection with each individual. Also, have an easy price structure that lends itself to people spending about $20. Why? Because everyone usually has a $20 bill. That way you don't have to fumble around with change. Also, make sure that raffle tickets are available at the door as well as throughout the venue. Basically, you kind of want to make it hard for people to say no, so have a time that you're going to call the raffle prices, usually about 30 minutes remaining, and have an option for people to fill out the ticket in the event they leave, so they don't have to be present to win. And the fourth part of running your event is keeping the momentum going. Remember, you set a goal that you want to reach, so you want to make sure you keep tabs on how much money is coming in throughout the evening. Someone should have a keen eye on the money coming in, as well as making sure your raffle sellers have a chance to drop off cash and keep their pockets light. Now remember in the first recording we talked about planning your event and your pricing structures. I want to give you a couple of tips that are going to work for you. First of all, you put a gauge on how much money you think each person will contribute. In this case, you want to get the most out of your fundraiser. So let's say you thought you could probably bring in about $50 a person. And instead of having a $50 price tag at the door, consider breaking it up into multiple transactions. Have a price for a raffle as well as for the bar. And while your participants may choose to give you $50, they are making the choice, being given only one option. Wow, that event went by quick. I know this poor little guy is sad too. We were having so much fun. We don't want the party to end either, but closing your event is just as important as starting it. So let's make sure we do this in a clean manner. First, start by thanking your guest and host vendor. It's a signal your event is over. It's also the perfect time to make sure everyone knows you appreciate their support. If you know a gauge about how much money you raised, mention it. You can say something like, "We still need to wrap up the details, but it looks like we raised over $2,500 for the Ride Freight Chicago." That's a great way to end an event. Closing out the finances is the most important part of your day for your fundraising event. Remember, it's a fundraiser, so without the cash, it makes it really difficult to make it successful. From the venue management, you want to immediately go to their office or less busy space in the venue to settle the bill. For instance, if you sold wristbands, make sure you counted what was given to you at the beginning of the night with an agreement, ideally in writing with both parties initialing it, as well as at the end. That way, you can pay the bar what you owe them, and the same if you sold drink tickets, etc. If the bar is offering a percentage of sales, you should also be able to request a printout of sales slips for the time of the event. That way you know what to expect. If you receive a percentage, most likely you'll receive that check at a later date. Make sure you email the venue with the final details that both you and the shift manager agreed upon, ideally while you're still on site. Next, you will probably have quite a bit of cash on you, so you want to make sure you count that cash out and have a second person recount it to agree with the amount. Finally, send an email to your team regarding the final totals and then submit the final amounts to TPAN. While that was a lot, we're not quite done yet. We want to make sure we leave that space in a better place than we found it. Don't assume you can leave signage, raffle prizes, confetti, etc. If you brought anything into the space, make sure you clean it up immediately. The venue's still operating and they don't want to hold on to your stuff and store it. So hopefully you had a great night's sleep. We have a couple of final details that we want to execute to finally wrap up your event. So you've got 3 tasks that you want to complete before we're officially done. The first task is to get the money and the fundraising kit back to TPAN within 3 days. This is critical to make sure the next person who wants to have a fundraiser has the kit available. Plus, you can make sure that the finances are reconciled and hit your fundraising pages. Next, if you borrowed anything, make sure you return it within 5 days. And finally, within a week, you want to make sure you send those thank you notes to your vendors as well as your donor raffles. Well, congratulations! Now you have all the skills to make a great and successful fundraiser. Now, let's go raise some money for TPAN.